The recent incident involving Karlie Redd and Rasheeda has gone viral on the internet. The fact that we are even talking about this is astonishing. You are familiar with them as the symbols of love and hip-hop. However, things have just taken an unexpected turn, and the rumors that are currently circulating are quite ugly. Imagine that when you are merely attempting to finish your daily workout in an attempt to stay in shape and mind your own business, the gym suddenly turns into a real war. There are several stories that claim a single word caused a typical workout to turn into a full-fledged violent altercation. There are rumors that Karlie Redd lost her fury after hearing the B word, and that Rasheeda may have pushed her a bit too far. The fan community has been absolutely taken aback by this level of animosity, despite the fact that we have seen their prior arguments and the tension building over the seasons. Before things got worse, security had to step in. That equipment was reportedly flying. Everyone is wondering if their friendship has officially ended or if it was merely an expected boiling point. To discover what really caused this altercation in the gym, we are exploring every detail and whisper that emerges from the camp. The information we are discovering regarding the discussion that occurred before the first swing will astound you. Keep an eye out. This discussion is not like any other. We're breaking it down for you right now because it's a moment that might change the dynamics of the entire show forever. You don't want to miss a second of this drama because it's growing darker by the minute. When Karlie Redd and Rasheeda arrived at the gym at exactly the same moment, it was the first red flag of the day. These two frequently avoid each other at all costs, especially when the cameras aren't filming, adding to the already tense atmosphere that could be cut with a knife. However, today was unique since they both ended up at the same high-end Atlanta fitness center where the elite work out. Karlie appeared more prepared for a photo shoot than a workout as she warmed up in her luxury attire, and it started with casual glances and hushed whispers near the treadmill. Conversely, Rasheeda was focused and in the zone, tempted to overlook her longtime foe. But as everyone knows, when Karlie Redd demands attention, it is almost impossible to ignore her as the minutes went by. Onlookers saw that each time Rasheeda moved to a different machine, the environment in the room changed from productive to toxic. A few feet away, Karlie was angrily berating her trainer for having false friends and being loyal. Everyone is aware of Rasheeda's pleasure in being in charge and steering clear of little controversy until absolutely necessary. Thus, it seemed to be a deliberate effort to annoy her. The whispers turned into loud jabs when Karlie started talking about recent business transactions and how some people are losing their touch in the field while others are just getting started. Rasheeda gave Karlie an angry look as she finally stopped her squat routine. She didn't say anything at first, which seemed to boost Karlie's confidence even more. In an effort to alleviate the situation, the trainer recommended that they move to the private weight area, but the fuse had already been lit and the damage had already been done. Karlie reportedly chuckled and stated that some individuals need their own rooms since they can no longer tolerate the heat in public. The silence broke and the verbal sparring began when Rasheeda went up to Karlie and urged her to keep her name out of her mouth if she wanted to finish her workout in peace. During the heated back and forth, both women brought up old scars from past seasons, as well as personal slights that had been simmering beneath the surface for months. The gym was overshadowed by years of antagonism and the power struggle that has always defined their relationship. Neither of the two moguls was willing to give up or be the first to depart. As Rasheeda stood her ground like a stone wall and refused to let Karlie intimidate her in a setting where she felt comfortable, onlookers described the mood as thrilling. Karlie was using her hands to make crazy gestures. The comments became more personal when personal, business, and familial failures were mentioned. The gym manager was going to intervene in front of everyone when the lethal word entered the conversation. Everyone knows it's the one thing you don't call Karlie Redd if you want to avoid a scene. So Rasheeda called her a terrible B word while scornfully glancing at her. The weight of that term hung in the air for a moment, and the entire gym became silent. Karlie's expression went from haughty to angry in a matter of seconds, and everyone watching could see that a line had been crossed that would never be crossed again. Without thinking, Karlie let go of her water bottle and sprang forward. Even the security guards who were on standby were taken aback. The initial collision was so powerful that everybody at the far end of the building stopped what they were doing and ran toward the noise, the scene of total chaos that resulted from the two women colliding near the heavy dumbbell rack was more dangerous than a normal street fight. Rasheeda tried to defend herself, But because the attack was unexpected, Karlie had the upper hand during the first few frantic moments. They got into a brawl that looked like something from a high-stakes action movie while other members attempted to move aside. Water bottles and gym towels were flying everywhere, and the pure emotion on their faces spoke the real story. It was an eruption of pent-up wrath that had been building since they first met, as well as a total collapse of professionalism. Even though you could hear the screaming and shouting of names as others tried to figure out if this was real or just some clever farce. Years of hostility fueled the women's strength. Thus, it was difficult for the security guards to eventually take command of the situation. As they were being ripped apart, Karlie tried to try a last kick, while Rasheeda cried back that she had finally gone insane and would regret touching her. The event was being recorded by at least a dozen iPhones, and within minutes, the first clip started to surface on social media, igniting a frenzy of theories and comments. While some fans defended Rasheeda, saying that Karlie is always the aggressor and went too far this time, others took sides in the debate over who was right and wrong in the comment sections, tagging associates of both celebs in the posts. Others suggested that if she wasn't ready for the smoke, she shouldn't have pronounced that word. The management of the gym was compelled to seal the doors and request more backup as the number of curious onlookers and photographers outside in an effort to get a sight of the aftermath increased. Even though the two women were being held in separate areas of the building to prevent more violence, the shouting could still be heard through the walls. It was a dismal day for Atlanta's social scene that will likely be spoken about for the rest of the year. Partners and sponsors are already starting to worry about how the fight would affect their image in the workplace. Beyond the fame and fortune, though, there is a serious personal injury that seems to be almost permanent at this time. When the police arrived to gather statements and assess the situation, everyone involved started to understand the reality of what had just happened. This was not a scene from a TV drama. Rather, it was an actual outpouring of wrath between two people who had formerly been close. Eventually, both women were escorted out of the building by the rear exit to evade the waiting cameras, looking upset and unkempt. The details of their injuries, however, were not immediately clear. The aftermath of the gym fight is just the beginning of a much larger story that involves legal threats and a total breakup with their social circle. There are already rumors that one of them may be permanently departing the program since the atmosphere has become too toxic to allow for any type of harmony, as everyone is forced to choose a side in this battle. But for now, everyone is just watching to see who will reach out to the media and how they will try to justify their actions in the public opinion court. The complicated issue only becomes more challenging with every new story that emerges from the Atlanta region. Tension is at an all-time high as the city appears to be holding its breath to see what will happen next in this story of deceit and bloodshed. Even the most experienced gossip columnists are shocked by the level of hostility displayed here, and it seems that the damage inflicted by those few moments of madness in the gym is irreversible. As the sun began to set over the city, the conversation only grew louder and the rumors became more bizarre, with some alleging that a third party had set everything up. Whether that is true or not, Yandy and the other crew members who are now caught in the middle of this disaster will not benefit from the fact that two of the biggest names in reality TV have irrevocably changed the gay man. There will be severe repercussions, and we are just starting to discover the extent of this rabbit hole. This rabbit hole goes a long way. No one could have expected how quickly the news traveled. As staff members tried to retrieve the shattered glass from a display case that had been knocked over during the altercation, the entire street was packed with onlookers and reporters trying to get a statement, making the atmosphere outside the gym nearly as chaotic as the violence that had occurred inside. The smell of expensive perfume and adrenaline lingered throughout the locker room area. Rasheeda sat on a seat with her head in her hands, trying to recover her breath, as her secretary hurried back and forth on the phone, most likely telling her husband, Kirk, or her legal team what had happened. Her hair was unkempt and her training clothes were torn. In all the years they had known each other, what truly caught my attention was the expression of complete disbelief on her face. She had never witnessed Karlie lose her temper like that. Karlie Redd was being restrained by two large security guards on the other part of the building. According to the guard, she kept yelling that she was sick of being treated disrespectfully and that she would not allow anyone to call her out of her name without facing repercussions. She was breathing heavily and her eyes were wide with a mixture of regret and rage, but she refused to back down even when the cops started asking for her version of events. She reportedly insisted that she was the one who had been verbally abused first, and that she was only protecting her honor after years of being the target of taunts and insults from the other members of the group. The accounts of the witnesses who saw the first punch being thrown differed widely depending on who you spoke to inside the building. Some witnesses said that Karlie had been planning the ambush from the time she entered, while others said that Rasheeda's comments were the trigger and that everyone would have reacted in the same way while the police were busy taking notes. The officers were worried that if the two women ran into each other again as they were leaving, another fight would break out in the parking lot, so tension continued as they went between the two rooms. The administration of the gym was seen yelling at a producer who had just arrived, claiming that the facility's reputation had been harmed and that they would be suing for the equipment. Members who had run away during the fight suffered damage and lost income. The whole jumble of personal grudges and legal threats grew worse as more people got involved. Social media was used to share the news with the boss store staff. And since everyone knows how much Rasheeda invests in her company and reputation, the atmosphere was dismal. The last thing anyone expected was for a brawl at the gym to destroy it. It seems that her close pals were contacting her. She felt even more alone because her phone was broken during the fight and was not functioning. To try to get ahead of the story, Karlie's camp was already working on a press release on the opposite side of town. Because they were aware that after the movie was released, it would be hard to defend the level of animosity displayed. In an attempt to gain some leverage, there were rumors that Karlie had even hired a private investigator to look into Rasheeda's recent financial dealings. The drama had evolved into a strategic dispute where both parties were looking for dirt and preparing for a long war in the public eye in the event that this subject got to court. It was no longer about a single insult or a workout. There was more division among fans than before. Some made hashtags defending Karlie's right to self-defense, while others called for her permanent expulsion from the program because of her violent behavior. The production company was reportedly holding urgent meetings to decide how to handle the problem, since they were caught between wanting to protect their celebrity and having the big ratings that drama brings. There were rumors that some other cast members would not record any scenes with Karlie unless she took anger management training or apologized to Rasheeda. However, considering Karlie's record, an apology appeared unlikely at this point because these women's public actions directly affect their families and businesses, and the fallout was starting to hurt their bottom lines. The emotional stakes were at an all-time high. When a major clothing company that was negotiating with Rasheeda allegedly put the contract on hold until the investigation was completed, her situation became considerably more awkward. She thought that because she had been attacked, she was being punished. However, as a result of the issue, the offender attracted more attention and sympathizers. Following the completion of their preliminary assessment, the police informed both parties that charges may be filed based on the medical reports and the final examination of the gym's internal security footage, which had captured the entire episode from many angles. The tape was currently the most sought-after piece of content in the world, with media sites offering 5-figure payments to anyone who could secure a copy. Eventually, the team was authorized to start the thorough cleaning within the gym. However, as the final onlookers were driven back by the yellow line, the mood had entirely changed and it was clear that neither woman would ever be welcome again. Eventually, a dense, eerie silence fell over the building. Everyone paused to think, but the silence was short-lived, because as soon as the back doors opened and they were escorted to their separate cars, the paparazzi's flashing lights and yelling resumed. And Rasheeda walked with her head held high despite her injuries and the visible quivering of her hands. Karlie was seen rushing inside a black SUV while hiding her face with a jacket. The dramatic disparities between the two ladies told us a lot about how they were handling the consequences from their friendship's worst day. As the cars pulled away and disappeared into the Atlanta traffic, people who were hiding in the locker rooms or the cardio area posted new perspectives of the fight every few minutes, intensifying the social media frenzy. The world was watching in real time as a friendship fell apart. As the evening went on, remarks grew more offensive as people displayed previous interviews and videos to show how long this conflict had been simmering. Regarding who was the real villain and who was the hero, everyone appeared to have an opinion. However, the reality was likely somewhere in the center, where two injured individuals had recently reached their breaking point as a result of the spotlight. The evening was only getting started for the legal teams and publicists who would be working non-stop to preserve the reputations of their clients. However, it was the series' most exciting development in years for the fans. Among the many unresolved issues were what this meant for the upcoming season and whether the two could ever be in the same room again without it turning into a crime scene. The setting of the show has been drastically altered by a single moment of losing control. It was impossible to return to the pre-workout state of affairs. It was clear that the coming days would be filled with further revelations and drama as the full narrative began to slowly emerge through a number of sources and insiders who were keen to share what they knew. The complicated network of falsehoods, facts, and half-truths only made the situation more confusing, as the effects of the gym brawl swiftly traveled to the average spectator, who just wanted to know whether everyone was okay. But in the world of reality TV, okay is a relative term. The only thing that was certain was that Karlie, Redd and Rasheeda's fight had just entered a dangerous new stage for which nobody was truly prepared. The impact of that one moment at the gym spread like wildfire, dominating every conversation on social media and entertainment blogs within 48 hours. As the battle's hashtag went viral nationwide, thousands of individuals discussed the morality of the incident and scrutinized every moment of the release footage. As everyone awaited an official pronouncement, the absence of communication from the inner circle only fueled conspiracy theories, making the situation even more tense. Some sources claimed that the fight was so serious that it violated their contracts and could lead to legal action that would prevent them from ever speaking to each other on camera, while others claimed that producers were desperately trying to turn the footage into a story that would save their next season. Behind the scenes, there was tension since several cast members were embroiled in a dispute that they had not asked for. Some friends reportedly refused to film with anyone who supported the opposing side, creating a gap that threatened to split the entire cast. The impact on each of their families was the most heartbreaking part of the story. Amidst all of this, there were several complaints on the internet about spouses and kids being exposed to this level of toxicity. And the pressure of the public scrutiny began to wear them down. It was no longer merely a conflict. It concerned the reputations of families who had spent years building a brand only to see it potentially collapse in a matter of seconds. Every story that surfaced was more exaggerated than the last, claiming everything from long-standing personal grudges to secret corporate betrayals that had finally reached a breaking point. It seemed quite tempting to face the rumors. There were a lot of rumors. The residences of those involved reportedly had a defensive and depressing atmosphere. In an attempt to keep the narrative under control before it went out of control, there were multiple meetings with publicists and legal counsel, according to persons familiar with the situation. The most damaging part of the rumors was the notion that this was not just a spontaneous act of aggression, but rather a planned fight that had been boiling for weeks. Whether that was true or not, many viewers had already identified the adversary of the drama, and public opinion had already shifted. Therefore, it made no difference what the truth was. The uncertainty of the future was the most taxing factor for all sides.